Hey guys, welcome back. It is your favorite Gimp with a Limp, and I'm here with another special treat for you guys. Something a little bit different than my usual fare, but let's go ahead and take a look at. Oh, and I zoomed in pretty far, so we're going to go like this. Here we go. Tank chess. Awesome little game here that I'm going to show to you guys. Now I've got it set up here for a smaller game. There are two boards that come with this. There's a 16 by 16 and a 20 by 20. I set up the 16 by 16 because we're not going to be playing the game in this video. We're going to just go over the overview, the components, how the game works, all that basic good stuff. And then later on, either Mrs. Gimpy or Mo is going to sit down with me and we're going to play around to this. All right, so I got my overlay set up so I can show you guys close-ups of all the different components as we go through, but we'll be cutting back and forth between the two. Now, obviously, as you look at the board, it looks very much like a chessboard, like you would anticipate a chessboard looking like. So this, to me, like when it said tank chess, I remember when they did the Kickstarter for this thing, I was like, well, they are definitely nailing the aesthetic for tank chess. And honestly, the rules are not very extensive. Let's take a look here. This is the little rule book that comes with it, and it is only a couple of pages long. So the rules are not horribly difficult, and you guys can see here all the different units that come in the game. There are the command tanks, the light tanks, medium tanks, heavy tanks, tank destroyers, and heavy mortars. Now we're going to go over all of those and what they do here in just a little bit later on. But just understand these are your pieces, okay? So these are your pawns. Like your light tanks are kind of like your pawns. You know, medium tanks are, I don't know, I'm not that good at chess, so I don't know what you'd call them. Your rooks, and I guess heavy tanks would be like knights, and tank destroyer would be, what do you call that? The bishop, that's right. And then heavy mortar, I guess, got to give that to the queen. Now, command tank is obviously going to be your king for this game. All right, so looking back at it, we're looking at the components here. Like I said, you're going to have two boards, and they are both front and back. So this is the smaller board, like I was telling you guys, 16 by 16. One side is blank, so has just the squares, and the other side has predetermined terrain on it. Now, this is where we're going to start differing from chess in and of itself. This has actual terrain, blocks line of sight like you would anticipate, so you can't shoot through it, can't drive over it, all that good stuff. The other side is blank because you can create your own setup. So here are some of the pieces that come with it. There's a couple of these little sheets so you can create your own terrain, and there's one piece falling out, so I'll pull it out. So you guys can see it very closely matches what we see here on the board. And there's a bunch of those different shapes, and you could lay it out just like so, and bam, create whatever terrain that you want to. And just so you guys can see it a little bit easier, here is the sheets that come with it. Remember, like I said, you're going to get a couple of these sheets so you can create whatever scenario you want. And going with that, there is what they call their little brochure here, and you can think of this as like your scenario booklet. There are multiple different types of scenarios in here that they have kind of correlated to chess in a way. Let's flip it open. I'll show you guys some of the titles. King something, King 1 to Knight 3 and all that crap. I don't know about chess, so you guys will have to forgive me. Old Town, Open Field. I saw some chess terms in here. Yeah, fortressing. I've heard of fortressing before. That's in here. Diagonals, split formation. So just think of these as like all your different scenarios in the book, and it kind of gives you an idea of how you can set up your maps. But what I'm showing to you guys now is the base game. So like what you're going to learn with. And what I do like that they do with these boards, and now of course you don't have to follow this, you can create your own scenarios, but they have the starting symbols listed down with each one of these. So our heavy tanks here have this little square, and then we have a medium tank with a diamond. Command tank has the little antenna symbol because it's got the little antenna on it. So you know that's your commander there, your king. another medium tank, and then the light tanks have that little like double arrow symbol, so go forward, go faster. Same thing for the other side. So we got our black pieces and our white pieces. And something that I do like that they did here when it comes to the pieces, and we're going to show all these here in just a sec, is the fact that the medium tanks would be hard to differentiate between the heavy tanks if they did not have a different colored top. So by doing that, they make it really easy. You can tell just by looking at the light tanks, okay, yeah, it's small, that's a light tank. But the medium and the heavy tanks are close enough that if you're kind of set back a little bit and you're looking at the board, you could confuse them if they were all the same color. So by offsetting these colors, they made it very easy to tell the difference between the two pieces. Same thing with the black ones, obviously. And let's actually grab a couple here and we'll get some close-ups of the pieces. All right, so I've got the pieces set out for you here, and these are just like the base pieces, okay? So light, and let's pull this around over here. Light, medium, heavy, tank destroyer, and the mortar tank. Now, light and command tank are the same. You tell the difference by whether or not it's got one of these little antenna attached to it. They just go on with a little round peg that pokes into the side. Real easy to do. So if it does not have one of those, it's just a normal light tank. If it does have one of these, though, it is a command tank. So it's your king. Your one that if you lose this guy, you lose the match. Now, on top of this, you can see that it is laid out fairly neatly here, and I'm trying to keep it out of the light so you guys can see this, sorry, that all the different tanks have different stats. Just like you would expect in chess or any other type of war game, they have different abilities. They've got the little marks for them, their symbols, all that good stuff, but then a max speed. So all the tanks are going to move the same way. It's just how fast they move. So like in chess, how you have the knight that does that weird one forward, one to the side move, kind of diagonal thingy. You're not going to have that here. In tank chess, you're looking at 45-degree turns and movements forward as part of your speed. So think of it as that many kind of movement actions that you can do. A light command tank can do 5, which means it could do 5 45-degree turns. Well, to an extent, I'll show you guys on the board, but any combination of 5 45-degree turns and movements. Now, you can do one backwards, but that's all you can do. You can't move backwards multiple times or turn and all that. If you move your piece straight backwards, it's just a one-off. All right, but we'll show you some of the movements here in just a sec. Armor matters in this game. So in chess, it doesn't matter kind of, well, in a little way, but what direction you're taking the pieces from. Here it does. You have front, side, and rear armor. And your gun has to be bigger than the gun, than the armor that you're shooting at. If it's equivalent or lesser gun, it can't take it out. So if we look at our light tank here, our light tank has a armor of 1 at the front and then 0 at the sides and the rear. And its gun power is a 1. That means that it could only, with a gun power of 1, take out someone who has a armor value of 0. So a light tank can only take out another light tank or a medium tank from the rear. It can't hurt, well, tank destroyer and heavy mortars as well. For our first little learning game over here, those units aren't in it, but their armor does count as well. So just think of it that way, that you have to have a bigger gun than the target you're firing at, the armor. So if you've got a gun of 1, you have to take out 0s. If you've got a gun of 2, you can take out 1s and 0s. Gun of 3, you can take out 1s, 2s, and 0s. All right, so real simple principle to understand. For the most part, kind of like real life. You want to shoot at the sides and the rear of the tank because that's the weakest part of the tank. If you've got a better tank, like a medium tank, it can take out a light tank from any direction. Now, when it shows your shooting direction, that means you can fire forward or 45-degree diagonals from that gun. Effectively, the turret. You can't fire 360 in this game. You can fire in that like 90-degree arc to the front is a good way to think about it. But that's it. Your two special vehicles, your tank destroyer, obviously no turret, so it can only shoot forward. Same with your heavy mortar. And when you're looking at the range, it says 2+ for everyone except for the heavy mortar, which can shoot across terrain. That's its little special ability. But that's the 2+ has to do with the fact that you cannot take out a tank from point blank range. So you can't drive up and get right next to someone and blow them away. You have to have at least a space of 1 in between you to fire at an enemy tank. All right, so let's pull our little pieces back over here. Our little command tank, our medium tank, our heavy tank here on the side, good stuff, and then our tank destroyer. Now let's go over very quickly what I was talking about there about your angles. Okay, so with this little light tank here, it could fire straight ahead or off in this path or along this path. That's your 45-degree angle. So it doesn't mean you can hit everyone in that area. You are firing effectively in 3 lines. So very similar to chess, you can't just take out weird maneuvers. So if an enemy tank were like over here, it's not on one of those lines. It's in its front arc, but you have to have it in those front arcs. So a enemy tank here, so our black light tank firing from here could take out this white tank. And it's just 1 hit to take someone out. You move and then you fire if you can, and it goes back and forth just like it would in chess. So from here, he would effectively be hitting the white tank side and he could take him out. But if he were here instead and firing at that light tank, he would not be able to take him out because his gun would not overmatch the armor. Now, the easiest way to think of it when it comes to the armor of these units is the fact that directly to the rear is a rear shot and directly to the front is a front shot. Any other angle that a shot comes in from is going to be considered a side shot. So real easy to understand on how that's going to work. Now let's show some movement. All right. So I was saying earlier, they have 5, 3, 4, whatever it is on their movement points. All right, listed down here. And there's a couple of these included with the game, you know, 1 for each side. So that's very nice. So our light tank here has a movement of 5. That means he could go 1. All right, so turning 45 degrees counts as a 1. 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, that would be 5 movement points. He might not have moved 5 squares, but that would be his 5 movement. You can take and just pivot. You don't have to go your full movement. There's no max to it. You have to move a piece though. All right, so you can't just stall and say, for an example, you got every piece exactly where you want it. You don't want to move any of them, or you have to move something. At least a 45-degree pivot. You can't leave everything exactly where it is. So you couldn't do something kind of cheap and go 1, 2, I'm done. All right, doesn't work that way. You got to have at least some type of movement with one of your tanks that's on the field. So all of your shooting is going to take place after you've moved a piece. So you'll move your piece, ding, 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 you know, going along, doing whatever you're going to do with your piece. Once you've got done, then that piece can take and fire at any units that it can see that it has in its arc of fire. And let's say this one moved just like so. He came up to this. He's pointing this way, but remember, he effectively has a turret, so he's got those 3 angles, right? So he could fire over in that direction, and since the shot's not coming direct front, that would be considered a side shot on the black piece, the black light tank here. Boom, tank's just taken off the board. Now, continue that example, though. So we still had this white tank sitting here, had moved here, and had finished his move. And now instead of a light tank, it's a medium tank that is sitting there. He can still technically take a shot. He's got the medium tank in his arc of fire, but he cannot take out that medium tank because that medium tank's side armor is a 1, whereas his gun is just a 1. So he cannot damage him. He can't overpower his armor to get in to destroy him. But if the black tank here had moved, and this was the end of his move, he would be able to outmatch the light tank and take him out. All right, and just to show a couple of more quick examples here of the tanks that I haven't shown just yet, we've got the mortar tank here and the tank destroyer here. This mortar tank could fire to destroy this black heavy tank. Because remember, looking at our little sheet, actually pull it over here so you guys can see it better, the mortar tank can fire up to 3 to 5 and can fire over obstacles. That's his neat thing. And if you look at his gun power, his gun is a 5. Strongest gun on the board. Even beats out the tank destroyer. Effectively, I guess he's hitting the tanks from the top. So if you're looking at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, he moved. He ended his position here. Boom. He fires and takes this heavy tank out. He has the gun power to basically overmatch him. He doesn't have to shoot over an obstacle. He could do the same thing from over here, say, and still have the same result. But he can take out the heaviest tank on the board, boom, willy-nilly, no problem. Now, these guys do have a lighter armor, though. The heavy mortar's drawback is that its armor is as light as a light tank. 1 in the front and 0 everywhere else. So you want to protect these babies as best you can. They're your biggest gun on the field, but they can be taken out very, very, very easily. The tank destroyer is a little bit more powerful with the armor. It's got a 2 on the front, 1's on the side, 0 on the rear, and it also has a very powerful gun, but its gun is a 4 instead of a 5, so it can still overmatch anything on the board. So, and honestly, it doesn't matter really because he can overmatch anything on the board from any angle, even the heavy tank from the front. But again, looking at this guy, he has no turret, okay? So whereas a heavy tank that were in that square could fire on the heavy tank and hit him, he could destroy him and effectively be a side shot from this angle. The tank destroyer cannot. He has to end facing the target. So it has to be a direct front line shot after whatever target that he's gunning for. And honestly, that's it. That's the gist of the game. The whole goal, besides just taking out the enemy command tank, is either take out the enemy command tank or get your command tank across the battlefield and then to cross their lines. So if your command tank gets across, not just any tank, but your command tank gets across, then you're going to win the match. Or if you take out the enemy's command tank, you'll win as well. So the game is very, very simple, but complex enough that I think that it's going to give you that deep thought that you can get in chess. You know, because chess, it takes 5 minutes to teach and a lifetime to master, right? Because there's so many strategies and intricacies involved with that. And I think they've done a relatively good job of nailing that feel, that aesthetic with this using tanks. And the fact that your light tanks kind of symbolize the pawns, you know, your medium tanks are the worker horses, your heavy tanks are slow, they're kind of your guards. You might want to cover your command tank with those heavy tanks. You want to move through, maybe sacrifice these light tanks to get some shots on their more important targets like their mediums, their heavies, or tank destroyers and mortars if those are being used in the board. So yeah, really, really interesting game here. This is one that definitely caught my eye, and I was very appreciative that they included a copy of this for me when they sent me some stuff when it came to Age of Dogfights, which you guys saw. Same company that made Age of Dogfights made this. So, excuse me, I'm a little choked up today. So yeah, I like it. They're trying new stuff. This company has been trying a lot of new stuff in the wargaming field. And this, they took something that people know, chess, and they threw tanks into it and came up with their own version of it, which I have to say I like. This one, though, definitely not going to be on my solitaire list. Could you solitaire this game? Yeah, but it isn't one that I really see much of a point in solitairing, because I think the fun of this game comes from outthinking your opponent. Could you play chess solitaire? Yeah, you could, but you're not going to have a whole lot of fun playing chess solitaire. This isn't the type of game that you're going to solitaire. This is the type of game you're going to sit down across from someone. You'll take 5 minutes to teach them the rules. Pretty much, you hand any board gamer this, and they're going to understand relatively quickly how to play the game, and you're going to start playing, right? That's it. And it's trying to outthink your opponent is really where the fun of this game comes from. Trying to catch them leaving their command tank out in the open, or them not paying attention to what you're doing with your command tank as you're pushing across the field. You make a sacrifice, put some heavies out there in a vulnerable position, and they think they got your heavy down. They're like, oh, yeah, we're winning. Your little light tank just scooting up the side. Commander's heading off the board, and they didn't even see it coming. That's where I really think the appeal of this game is going to come from. And one more little piece that I did forget to show you guys, they did include these little sheets here that you can draw out your maps, your fields. So if you want to come up with your own map and you really like it and you want to play it again, you can sketch it in here, so that way you can keep track of it, keep score, see who's won more often on it. Just neat little thing that they included this. They included a number of these sheets, a little pad full of them, so I like that they did include that. All right, so what we're going to do, like I said, is this is going to be a two-parter. I'm going to take and play it one time, or do the overview here, rather, and then we're going to play a game out. I'm going to try to get Mo to stream it with me. If that doesn't work, I'll have Gimpy's gal sit down and play the game with me. But either way, I want you guys to see this game in action, because I think that's really where the appeal of this is going to come from, is seeing people play it, trying to outthink each other, trying to snipe that command tank if you get the chance. Oh, and I think I mentioned this earlier, but just making sure I do mention it, there are no ranges, all right? If you see here, it's 2+ on the sheet. So as long as you're not dead smack against your enemy, like so, you can fire all the way across the board if you have a clear shot. That's why you gotta have terrain on the board. You gotta have something covering your stuff, otherwise they'll just start off with bang, 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 bang. Everyone's dead. So yeah, it's infinite range. If you've got a big tank destroyer sitting right here, he's sighting all the way down. There's no like Overwatch or anything like that, but you can shoot all the way down in any direction, all right? As long as you've got a clear line of sight, bam, you can hit them. But you guys stay tuned for that. I will get that video up as soon as possible, so I can give you the full picture of the game. From what I can show you guys now so far, though, I like it. I think it's cool. The components that are included are what you would need. The pieces to create your own map. I like the fact that they gave you 2 boards, 2 mounted boards that are double-sided. That way you have 2 sizes that are already pre-made, ready to go. You throw it on the board, put your pieces there, and you're good. Bam, you're playing within a couple of minutes, especially since the markings are already there on the board. But if you do want to go in depth, you want to play the scenarios they've included, or you want to create your own scenarios, you do have that ability very easily to do with the included pieces. So awesome choices that they have included. And the little plastic tanks are just cute. I mean, they're just adorable little tanks. You could paint them if you want to. They're cheaper plastic. They're not like the model plastic or resin or anything like that. So if you wanted to paint them, I guess you could, but you would have to paint them in such a way as to be able to easily distinguish the sides. Maybe have a predominant color, white, black included somewhere in there. I doubt I'm going to paint it, because it's just too small, and I don't think they're detailed enough to go down that road. But some people are very artistic and can pull something off like that and have it look really cool. I'm just not the guy that's going to be able to do that, unfortunately. All right, but you guys stay tuned. I will have that video up for you very soon, hopefully showing you guys the game in action. If you have any questions about it, feel free to put it down below. Otherwise, I will talk to you guys in the next one. Y'all take care.